So after a COVID, sadly a COVID-inspired break, we're back doing my podcast, which is Beans with Bristow, and we're doing it this week. We're doing it via Zoom, and I'm talking to a really inspiring young man. I'm speaking to Caiden, who's become a little bit, I suppose, famous in Peterborough for interviewing all sorts of Peterborough United fans. He's only a young lad, but he's done some superb stuff. I've been a fan of some of his interviews, and that's why we're going to talk to him. Now, you might remember the reason we do this, the reason we've got this podcast, Beans with Bristow, it's not political. I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm not going to talk about how excellent my work is and how the people of Peterborough should vote for me. I'm going to talk about what I love in Peterborough and why I'm doing this, because I'm fed up. I'm fed up of people talking down my city, the city that I grew up in, because I think Peterborough is a fantastic place, and we've got a lot going for us. And the biggest thing we've got going for us, the best thing we've got going for us as a city, are the people of Peterborough. And that's why I identify people who I think are fun, people who I think have done good things, people who I think who are quirky, and people I think a wider audience of people in Peterborough should hear from. And that's why we've got Caiden on the line. So hello, Caiden. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Busy day in Peterborough, but I've been looking forward to speaking to you for a while, because I think it was it your grandmother or your well, certainly one of your relatives contacted me, talked to me about what you were doing, and she told me that you'd interviewed all these Peterborough football players, and I listened to some of the interviews, and they were super, and you've managed to do that in a credible way, and to be so young and doing that is a real achievement. So, how many interviews have you done with Peterborough United football players?
So I've done 3 with 3 former players. Craig McCall-Smith, who was one of the top goal scorers for Posh, and he's one of the reasons why Posh have been in the Championship. I've also interviewed 2 other players that played for Posh in around the 90s and like the 2000s, and yeah, they were very good players for Posh, and it was just a great experience being able to interview such great players that used to play for Posh.
So who were the other 2 players then, the ones you interviewed and then played for the team in the 90s and the 2000s?
Well, there was Dean Hooper, who was a right back for Posh, and apparently he was quite a good player. I obviously never got to watch him play, but I sort of got to learn a little bit about him. And then the other one that I did was with former Posh player David Farrell, who I really enjoyed, interviewing him.
Well, you're a lot younger than me. I remember I used to have a season ticket at Peterborough United, when I was probably about your age, and stood in London Road. Do you go and watch Posh? Are you a regular fan?
Yeah, so this season coming, I've bought a season ticket. Obviously, the first few games will be, we won't be able to go in the ground, but hopefully eventually we'll be able to get back into the ground. This is my 2nd season ticket ever at Posh. And I sit in the family stand, and I really enjoy going to Posh and watching them play.
And how long have you been a fan?
So I've been a fan for Posh for 4 years now, and I started getting into Posh mainly because of my dad and granddad Rob. They both supported Posh. My granddad Rob's been supporting Posh since he was really young. He's always had a season ticket for Posh, and he remembers when it was literally just all standing round other than one stands. And it just really inspired me to go and watch Posh, and I've really enjoyed it.
Well, you remember me sound quite old, because I can remember that as well. When I first used to go in the late 80s with my dad, Glebe Road, or the family stand. No, hang on, is it the family stand? The 2-tier stand, that was just open top terracing all on the side on Glebe Road, and the Moyes end was just like London Road, and it was just standing it there. So it looked exactly like. So honestly, you make me feel my age. But so you've done 3 interviews. What was your favourite interview?
I would probably say the one with Craig McCall-Smith, just because he was a great player for Posh. He scored loads of goals for us. Obviously, I never got to see him play. Well, I never got to see him play in his prime. I did see him when I first started watching Posh in my first ever game. I actually saw him play. It was when he came back for short loan spell. I never got to see him in his prime, but for me, I really enjoyed interviewing him.
He's a great player. Did he play for Scotland, or am I making that up?
No, he did. He did play for Scotland. In fact, when he was at Posh, when we got promoted to the Championship, he got a call up from Scotland, and he told me it was great to play for Scotland, and yeah, what an experience it was for him.
So how did this come about? How did you end up getting access to these footballers? Why would they? How did you get to interview them? It's a funny story, really.
Well, the first one I did was with Craig McCall-Smith, and I'd obviously knew of him before because he's a Posh legend, and you know, I've not had Twitter for that long. I think I got it in around May. And, you know, I followed him on Twitter. I saw a couple of people interviewing before, and I thought I might ask him and, you know, see if I could get an interview with him, which I didn't really think he would respond, but he got back to me. And yeah, I was really delighted to interview him.
That's amazing. And you know, that really good bloke that he turned around and did that. And did you use the interview with him to then get the other two?
Yeah, I did. Because I before that I started interviewing a few more like sort of what I do, a few football YouTubers that do content on their teams, and speaking to them was a great experience as well. And yeah, then I went on to interview 2 other former Posh players.
Well, there was a Peterborough United football player called Noel Luke, and he played for Posh, again, probably the 80s and 90s. And he lived around the corner from me where I grew up in Whittlesea. And there you go. But he would be a great person to speak to because he was a lot of fun. He was actually really nice, and he'd speak to him and hand in the air, and all these kids like were going, "Hey, Noel, Lukey," and all this sort of stuff. And he was actually a decent bloke. So what do you want to do with this? I mean, do you want to do media when you get older, when you leave school and get a job? Is that what you want to go into?
Well, I would love to do YouTube as my career, but you know, it's a sort of a dream, but I'm doing it now. But I've seen that you have to be, you know, you have to have a big fan base to sort of do it as a living. But I'm inspired by 2 people that work at Posh. I wouldn't mind being a photographer because I recently bought a new camera out of the sponsorship money from Darren McAntony, who owns Posh.
Good man. How did the sponsorship thing come about? You mentioned that. Tell us a little bit about that.
So basically, I approached a few companies. A few of them, you know, I thought, why not? Let's ask Darren McAntony, who obviously owns Posh. And he got back to me, I think the day after, and he said, yeah, I will be happy to sponsor you for a year. And yeah, that's sort of how it went about.
That's an amazing achievement. Honestly, you should be very proud of yourself because, you know, it's an incredible thing.
I've seen some people and they really inspire me to sort of they inspired me to start YouTube, and I sort of started it 3 years ago, and I've definitely improved since then, and I've come along on a great journey, and I'm really looking forward to the future.
Why do you think last season didn't really work out in the end? I mean, it kind of all fell away in the end, didn't it? And do you think Peterborough can consistently get into the Championship and go from there?
Well, last season was really unfortunate how it ended, but we started the season off not great. We lost a couple first few games. I remember it was the Fleetwood game, which it was not looking hopeful after that. But then we sort of started winning. We started winning games. The team started to form, and then we sort of went on a winning streak. And then it came to I think the end of November, December, January time, and we started sort of losing games, which we usually do during the winter. We usually go on a run of form, which isn't great. But then it started to look bright when we made a couple of signings in January. We signed Smodics on loan. Then we signed, we signed Jack Taylor, and you know, we signed him for 500,000, which did sound like a lot of money, but he ended up being a great player. And we got Smodics on loan, who obviously we signed him last week, I think it was. which was a great move for us to get him. But yeah, we started to go on a good run in the February time. And then I think it was the last game that I saw Posh play was the Portsmouth game. We won 2-0. Portsmouth were a team challenging for the playoffs, pushing for the top two. And yeah, it was great to beat them 2-0. And it was looking very hopeful. And then obviously we all got put into lockdown. And yeah, it's gone ever since. Ever since then, it's not really been amazing for Posh. Unfortunately, by points per game, it was sort of a thing that, like some teams, like I don't know really, we missed out by 0.2 of a point, which is very unfortunate. Because if we drew one game, we would have got into the playoffs, and we could have had a chance in getting promoted through the playoffs. And the two teams in the playoff final were Oxford and Wickham. Both teams we beat 4-0 like a couple of weeks before.
Yeah, I mean, look, what this points per game thing did, I mean, it's just so monstrously unfair because it didn't actually reflect kind of momentum or anything like that, did it? And it just meant that, you know, Peterborough or Posh were just unable to go. But it was monstrously unfair. Loads of teams across the country had similar experiences, but Peterborough probably was the closest. Yeah,
it was really unfortunate to see as a Posh fan. I didn't really expect us to make it into the playoffs after I saw what they were sort of planning on doing. But then I sort of had a little bit of hope. But then I just got, you know, I heard about the news and I was devastated.
Joke, really. Yeah, it's just a joke. I mean, are you hopeful for this year?
Well, we played last week. We lost 2-0 to Accrington Stanley, who writ off as that tin pot team. But I think Accrington are actually, they're a half decent side now. They're in League One. You know, their team was really good against Posh. I'm not making an excuse of that's why we lost. I think we should have had the chance of winning. But, you know, I think we can go, if we go on to a good run of form, I think it hopefully will go on from there and hopefully we can get promoted this season.
Have you seen their ground, Accrington's?
Yeah, I've never been to their grounds, but it doesn't look amazing really. But
it's a shock.
Yeah, the away seating, well, there's not seating, it's standing, and there's not even a roof, there's not a shelter. And I feel sorry for some away fans that just have to stand in the freezing cold on a winter evening.
Well, it is a shocking ground, but do you know something? I think I've been once, and it's a lot of fun. I like old rubbish football grounds like that. And you get cold and you get wet, but that's what football's all about.
Yeah.
You know, I loved it. Well, listen, I'll tell you what, guys. I keep saying that Peterborough is full of all sorts of different people with different skills, different talents, and it's the best thing going about our city, and that's what makes me proud of Peterborough. And Caiden, you also make me proud of Peterborough. You're a remarkable young man, and just go for it, my friend, and there's nothing you won't be able to achieve. So well done.
Appreciate it.
No problem.